Hey guys, I'm Gene with Silver Sport Transmissions, and today we're going to talk about installing the 4-speed hump in your automatic transmission tunnel. Okay, so again, we get this common question about installing the 4-speed tunnel humps in cars, and we don't have like a specific template. So at the factory, the way it would work would be real simple. They all ran down the line, they all had the same beautiful floor, but what ended up happening is the car was ordered with a 4-speed or even a 3-speed. They would have a template that they would lay down on the floor, mark the spot, and cut it, and we're going to show you that a little bit later. And mark the spot, go ahead and cut it out and tack in the new hump, just like we are going to do to install your 4-speed hump. So what I brought along with me today is a TKO transmission, because we're going to talk about how we're going to measure for that particular thing, and then I brought along a couple different humps that we actually use and send out to you in our complete automatic conversion kits. So we'll start out with a couple basic things to get the measurement on the transmission, and each one of them is a little bit different. Today I just happen to have a transmission we're going to be putting in Brian's car a little bit later. And this is what we call our front offset position. So it matches the factory 4-speed position, whether it was console or non-console, regardless, and it fits perfectly in the original shifter hole. So that's one of the best things. So one of the things I like to do and talk about is when we're installing these, you can do this a couple different ways. The way I like to do it, the way we're going to show you how we do it today, is actually with the bell housing installed in the car. Now, if you don't have the bell housing installed in the car, you can still do it. We just have to add some things to it and add some measurements to it, and you can even do it without the engine in the car. Again, we need to add some things to it. So say we're doing it without the bell housing. That's real simple. We're still going to take the same measurements on the transmission, but then we're going to add the depth of the bell housing. And the same thing with the engine. We're going to take the measurement from the center of the points of the engine mounts all the way back to the back of the block. We're going to take that, add it in, plus the bell housing, plus the shifter point, and you can measure off your engine mounts. And that sounded kind of confusing. That's why I like to use the bell housing method myself. So anyway, one of the first very simple basic things that we're going to do is when we take our measurements, we're going to write them down. We're going to measure from the front face of this transmission. We're going to go straight down the center line to the center point of the transmission. Now you want to make sure the transmission's in the neutral position like this one is, okay? So you'll measure from this point to the center point of the transmission, okay? And that'll be your first measurement. And then you're going to measure from the center to the center of the shifter offset. So in this case with Brian's car, a little bit later we're going to show you, it was 17 inches approximately with a 2 1/3 offset. Doesn't have to be perfect, guys, and I'm going to tell you why. These little beauties that come from that are reproduction from the factory are perfect because they're going to line up perfectly on the floor. So even if you get the hole somewhere close, as you start lining this up, as we'll show you later, it's going to line up perfectly in the car anyway, and so you'll know exactly where it's supposed to go. So what I did was bring a couple of them with me today. Now we're going to show you one later that's for Brian's car. Now Brian's car originally wasn't going to be a console car. So what we did with Brian's is, and you'll see that hump later, Brian's car has the factory for the non-console hump that we're putting in his car, which you'll see. And then this particular one, now this is for the early 60s first gen A body, so the 64 to 67s. This would be a console hump for that car, and what we put in Brian's would be a non-console hump. So we supply either one that you need, it's not a problem. And then this moves up to a later model car, so a later second generation car, so a 68 through 72. This is a console hump for the Chevelles. Now, the Oldsmobiles and the Pontiacs use something similar. They were all offset regardless, other than the 71 through 72 Olds, which actually had the same type of shifter hump as the Chevelle. It's kind of confusing, but you just kind of notice. The next one that we have here, this is one of the ones that we do a ton of, and this one here is actually for the 70 through 81 Camaros. Now, the original 67s and 69s, they didn't really have it. They had a hole for an automatic or a hole for the other, and they fit perfectly in the tunnel. But they actually put shifter humps in the tunnels, and this puts it in the offset position as well. And then this is just another example. This is for your early Novas, your 64 through 67 Novas. This is what fits in there, and it just has its own little thing. And then my favorite one is this big one. Now this is for a Mopar E-body. Same exact situation. When they come down the factory, they all have the same floor. They put this big honking hump in. And the beauty part about this is, here at Silver Sport Transmission, we're able to mimic every one of these shift positions even though they're different. That's one of the things that makes us great. So, basically, again, we're going to show you this a little bit later. Real simple to do. You have your bell housing in, you're going to take your tape measure, we're going to show you that later. You're going to measure off the 2 points, you're going to make a drill through the hole in the floor pan, you're going to use that as your centering point for your hump, and we're going to show you that in a little bit. So here we are under the car, and what I like to do when putting in the 4-speed tunnel humps or 4-speed perches, what you will, I like to go ahead and have the bell housing in because this will give you a good point for the shift position that we measured earlier on the transmission. Now you don't necessarily have to do it. You can take the depth of the bell housing and go from the back of the block, but I find it easier with this. So however you want to do it is up to you. As measured earlier, we know the shifter position's about 17 inches behind the bell. So what I've done at this point is I've basically taken my trusty tape measure here and simply measured from the back of the bell to 17 inches back here on the tunnel, okay? And I've marked a little X spot. Now, then what we do is we know that the shifter position's about 2 1/3 of an inch, or 2 3, a little bit over 2.3 inches off to the right. So what I'll do is at this point is I'll take my tape, put it on that center position and move it over 2.0, and I'll mark that spot right here as well, okay? So this isn't rocket science. It doesn't have to be precise, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. All right, so we've got our spot marked out right over here to the right. So we knew it was 17 inches and with a little bit of 2 1/3. Again, doesn't have to be precise at all, just really close. So this will give you an idea of where to locate the 4-speed tunnel hump, and as you'll see, it'll actually come into play when we go up to the top in just a few minutes. So we're just going to pop this thing right on up in here, and very simply, that's it. That's all you got to do. All right, so here we are in the car. This is actually very nice original car. You can see the factory seams in this car. The floor pans have not been molested or anything. More than likely, you're not dealing with that, and that's okay. This is going to work the same with replaced floor or not replaced floor. That's not a problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here and look at the hole that I've drilled. Okay, so we've got the hole right here that we drilled. This is kind of our centering point. One of the biggest things, these guys do such a great job on these reproduction humps that when you go to put it in the floor and we center this up, you're going to see that it's going to pretty much center itself automatically. So, and with having this point, you'll know as soon as we slide it up here, at that point, it's in its centered position. Okay, so this is where your hump's going to go. This is about where the shifter is going to pop right out of the hole. Okay, so what we're going to do at this point is we will end up scribing this at this point around, and then we'll come out and we'll measure in just a little bit so we can use this lip right here that's provided, and at that point we'll go ahead and make the cut, tack this in, and then use our template. All right, so I got my trusty grease pencil. I've got it placed where I want it, and you just simply scribe around it very simply. Follow the contours of the floor. Again, you probably won't be this lucky and have this nice of a floor. Brian's car is very straight. I think his dad bought this car when Brian was just a wee, actually Brian wasn't even born yet. Brian's younger than I am. You just scribe around it and make this nice little place right here. All right, so as you can see, that's going to be our initial cut. Now this is exactly what they did at the factory. All the floors were exactly the same. They all came this way, except for Brian here. He had this, I don't know what he did here, but there's some kind of shifter, aftermarket shifter he had on here. But this is exactly how they did it. They had a template they laid on the floor. They went ahead and made their cut. Once they made their cut, then they tacked in this hump, just like we're going to do. All right, so as you notice down here, we've already went ahead and marked the inside area how we're going to cut it. So that was the original line that I made. We went ahead and marked on the inner side. Now this we didn't do with any precision at all. We just kind of traced it in. We came in a little bit. In the factory, they did probably cut out this much. We're just going to go ahead and do it. Gives us plenty of room. That way we run into less interference if we were to have any. And so what we're getting ready to do now is go ahead and get in the cutting deal, and we're going to go ahead and cut this out. We'll show you how we're doing that, and then we'll place that hump again and go from there. And this is Brian's finished interior. If he had purchased the factory console, it looked exactly the same as a factory manual car. If you guys have any questions, do not ever hesitate to give us a call or an email.